All right, welcome everybody. Milspec Op Smoky here. I am blessed with having this guest today. I'm really excited about this. This is Chris Weatherman from Angry American joining us, and we're going to be talking about prepping and all the fun stuff that goes along with that. And so, with that said, welcome, Chris, brother. Good to have you, man.
Thanks for having me on, Monkey Man. I've been a follower of yours for quite some time. I follow your page and watch your stuff, so this is cool for me to be talking to you. So,
that's cool, man. So, a little background on you for those that don't know. So, Chris was he was on History Channel season 1 of Alone. He's listed as USA Today's bestsellers list twice, and has authored multiple survival books, including a series called Going Home. He's been prepping since the 1990s and considered an expert in primitive as well as modern survival skills. You can find Chris on YouTube, Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, as well as his own website, which is listed right there in the ticker, which is going to be angryamerican.com. And so note that Angry is spelled with an E-R-Y. Just so you
that's
guys
right.
So, yeah, season 1, brother. I got to tell you, I watched you before I knew you, and I remember the wolf scene, and I remember thinking to myself the same thing that you were thinking, because that was an interesting deal. The wolves that were up on that ridge line behind you, and you just had basically a tarp or a canopy strapped over a tree branch, you know.
Yep.
And I remember that thinking, man, that's a whole different element, man. You got nothing to defend yourself with. I mean, all you can do is go jump in the water out there, you know?
Yeah, you could run to the ocean or the sound out there, but you know, and they were big too. And a lot of people give me crap for it. I don't care, you know, give me crap for it, but it's a known thing. People that know me well, they know me and dogs don't always blend. I got bit by a canine at SHOT Show one time, you know.
Yeah.
So dogs, it's always a gamble, and wolves, you know, they won't just bite you, they'll eat you. So I was like, I'm out of here. But it was really stupid, because when I called them, it's like, hey, I got a pack of wolves like here in my camp. They're within 30 feet of me. You know, you need guys to come get me out of here. It took them 14 damn hours to get there.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Wow.
The sun that was in the middle of the night, so it was the sun was up and shining before they ever showed up. And
oh yeah.
Like, I'm good now.
It's funny because the cameraman that rolled up on the boat, I remember him saying, "Oh, he's still alive."
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, for season 1, we joked that because you know it was their first attempt at this, and so we were their you know R&D department, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And we joked going in that, like, if something happens, they'll get there in time to recover the bodies, maybe.
Yeah.
That's what we were saying going in. So
yeah, without a doubt. And what was interesting is they put you on a totally separate spot than everybody else.
Yeah.
So
you were
I was
across
remote.
the sound from everybody else on my own patch. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, that was an exciting season, man. I'm glad you lived to tell the tale. So,
oh yeah.
So as we go through this, I wanted to ask you a couple things. So I have been asked by my followers for a long time, you know, hey, you know, can you give us some survival stuff, right? Like just, you know, they come up with some general questions and things, but I know that you're kind of the go-to, like you're the survival beard of knowledge. And so what I want to do is really just pick your brain. I've got questions from both followers as well as ones that I came up with, and then of course Millennial Max sent some over as well, and she's actually probably asked better questions than I do. But without further ado, as I always say, if we kind of get into this, what do you see is the biggest threat in the coming weeks or months or years relative to the survival needs? Like what's your thought on what's going to shake loose and go down? I know I have my own ideas, but what do you think's happening?
You're probably going to shake your head or nod your head as I say this. Presently, in this country, my biggest concern is the civil unrest thing. You know, the progressives, the hard progressives in this country are doing everything they can to foment a civil war. That's just where we're at. That's their end desired goal. And they're working hard at doing it. You know, everything from critical race theory to the stuff they're trying to shove down everybody's throat that nobody wants. You know, there's plenty of videos of parents at these school board meetings not wanting this stuff, and they're arresting them and getting in fights with school boards over this. It's clear that people don't like the direction of the country. Some people do, that the country's going, but the majority do not. And it's going to come down to being settled in the streets. Sadly, I don't want that to happen. I'm very happy with the way the country's, normal life is. I like air conditioning and soft beds and hot water and all that stuff, and I don't want to see none of that go away.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern. My next biggest one, right behind that, immediately behind that, is the conflict looming with China. So.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I'm with you. I think civil unrest is probably one of the big ones that's going to be probably on the near term horizon. That and the fact that if you've been watching the news, this food shortage stuff is kind of, you hear them talking about it all over the world, right? And you got this massive drought in the West that's certainly going to impact things. I imagine fire season is going to be pretty crazy this year, and so mix all that in with the civil unrest, and it's going to quickly look like South America,
Oh yeah. Well, when you said this, the food thing, I have an insider at one of the country's biggest food companies. I'm not going to say what kind of food they're even in, but through him, I get their internal stuff. And what he just sent me was like, so right here, he just sent, this is an internal document from this company, and it's about how grocery stores are getting back into the old habit of keeping reserve inventory, not just on the shelf stuff, not the just in time, the trucks show up, it goes on the shelf, actually keeping reserve inventory, because the stores are now starting to realize that this is going to be a problem. We knew through him, I knew that meat prices were going to go up in the last month. No, I'm sorry, May 31st, that they were going to go up May 31st. But what happened at the same time? May 31st, what happened? We had that big hack on a big meat producer, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Conveniently, he told me this is what can happen. Prices are going to go up on the 31st, and then whack, they get hacked. And oh my goodness, look what's happening now.
Imagine.
So everything is not as it always first appears. He knew the prices were going to go up. He didn't know that's what was going to do it, but that's what did it. So there's definitely something going on. And what people fail to realize too, this is something everybody needs to keep in the back of their mind, is food has always been used as a weapon. Stalin was a master of it. Mao did it. The Cambodians did it. Khmer Rouge. I mean, look at what Stalin did in Ukraine. Food will be used as a weapon again. And with the shortages and this stuff that's happening, I don't blame it all on market conditions. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, toilet paper is nice to have, but you're right. When you start missing out on the food stuff, it's a whole different level of necessity, right?
Yeah.
So what do you recommend for like food rations and things of that nature? Speaking of food, what's your thoughts on that? Are you pro for some and others? Are there?
Well, yeah. There's some companies out there I'm not a fan of. I'm not going to mention them by name because I'm not a fan of them, and I'm not going to talk bad about them. But I just not my thing. I like the food systems, the storage systems that let you purchase individual ingredients. As opposed to buying Mountain House breakfast skillet. Yeah, that's great for a day or two if you're out camping. Trying to make that a diet, that'll wear you out in a hurry. And Thrive and Augustin Farms are two of the companies that do the individual things. So I can buy a number 10 can, or a 5-gallon bucket of dehydrated spinach if that's what I want to put away to use to make other stuff with, as opposed to buying all the prepackaged stuffs. And then through Carl, Technical Rifleman, I've been turned on to Central Nutrient. I got to look them up again. It's a new company out that's making some very high quality freeze dried food. Doesn't have all the sodium and all the garbage in it. And they actually took the military's SF nutritional requirements and they integrated that into their menu so that when you eat one of their meals, you get all the essential nutrients that you need to keep you running. So I'm going to be checking that one out. Stuff looks pretty good. So
yeah, hopefully it tastes good. Most of the MREs, if you've ever had the at least back 30 years ago, man, it's like eating cardboard. It's horrible.
Those old brown bag ones, those old chocolate brown bag ones.
Yeah, man.
Omelet with ham.
Yeah, that's bad stuff. Bad stuff, horrible. And it would straight up lock you up too, man. And there's nothing worse than just being constipated out in the woods trying to survive, right?
Yeah, that's bad. That is bad. But when we're talking food, what it comes down to, the end of the day, and this is difficult for most people to do, but if you cannot produce all your own food, and I mean all of it, it doesn't matter how much you've stored, because one day you're going to open up that last can and then you're going to be looking around, wondering what the hell to do. And while total food independence is very difficult, time consuming, it is the ultimate insurance. And that's not, I don't mean get you a seed vault and throw it in a closet someplace and figure that when the fecal matter hits the oscillator, you're going to learn to be a farmer, because you're not going to. You're going to have massive failures, and you're going to be frustrated, and then that will be even worse to your morale than just being hungry. So,
yeah, well, I mean, it's hard enough to do, grow a garden and have a farm just in the current conditions, and you can imagine in something where there's even civil unrest or a natural disaster, adding on top of that changes all the dynamics. Now, I don't know if you remember, we just had this huge freeze that came through Texas recently, right? And now I've been through SEER school, and that was 30 years ago, so it's changed quite a bit. But I will tell you that I thought I was pretty well prepared until that storm hit, and caught everybody by surprise, and we went into the negatives, down in right at freezing, below freezing range for an extended period of time, and people's pools were freezing, power was out, no running water. There was a lot of things that happened, and even to the point that, like, my wife has a diesel 250, right, and that's one of those things. Sorry, I got the dogs barking. Never fails. But that diesel, we couldn't even get to start. So having that vehicle was just a waste.
Yeah, if that block was so cold and lived in Texas, you're not gonna have block heaters in it anyway. So as soon as the temperature drops, you won't crank. Like you said, you might as well not even have it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the thing is, you go to put, you think, well, I can just plug it in, right? Because that's how the Fords are lined up, right? They have that little cord, and you can plug in, and it'll warm it. But if you don't have power, you're done. You know? And so that was one of the quick lessons I learned. And then the same time was without the water when the pool started freezing over. Because I always thought, if we get in a bad situation, you need to flush your toilet. You've got I got a pool in the backyard. I can just draw from that and fill the back of the tank, and I got a good flush, right? And so, but when that thing started freezing over, that whole theory went right out the window. And so, what do you suggest for people, in terms of just having, as when you're out in the wilderness or you're trying to survive, you end up having situations that will put you into a panic, and then you're not thinking clearly. How do you get past that, where you can actually, kind of keep your level set mind and not panic, not do stupid things? What's your recommendation for people in that kind of a situation?
Well, most people, I talked about how much I enjoy the comfortable life, and that's what we're all used to. That's what we all live. So when we find ourselves in a true to God survival situation, it's just overwhelming to most people. We live in a society where nothing is your problem. You're always supposed to call somebody, dial 911, call the cops, do whatever. So nothing's ever your problem. There's always someone here to fix it for you. So the first thing that I tell people is, once you realize that there's a problem, as soon as you can, and you're not in an immediate danger, obviously if there's something burning or blowing up or whatever, you need to run like hell. But when you can, stop and sit down for a minute and kind of take stock of your situation. My buddy Alan Kay has a great phrase that he uses for this, and he sits down, he thinks of what's the first thing that's going to kill me, and then he addresses that. And after that, what's the next thing that's going to kill me, and we will address that, and work them one at a time. Multitasking in that kind of a situation isn't the greatest. Hopefully security is not a big concern, because if it is, well, you're pulling security at the same time you're doing all this stuff. But think smaller. If it's pouring rain, or say it's freezing rain or something, and I need a shelter, and that's the order of right now, well, then I'm going to put all my focus and energy into getting the shelter. And as soon as the shelter's done, then I'm going to move on to the next thing, and the next thing, and just work them one at a time. Establish your priorities, and then work from there. And the priorities are going to be different based on the situation, the scenario, where you are, what resources are available, your skill set, all kinds of stuff. So I can't really tell you, do this first. You got to decide what's going to kill me first, and then work on that. Yeah,
that's actually an excellent point. That's how the SF community works, right? They look at what's going to kill me first. What's the initial threat? And it may not be water. You think, well, water's your number one. I mean, 3 days without water, you're going to be dead. And
but see, there's the thing. So, and that's another thing too. A lot of us get stuck up in these little cliche comments like 3 days without water, you're dead.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are, 3 hours without water might kill you.
This is true.
Legitimately, I mean, you're former military. You've been out in the miserable heat, under stress, physically exerting yourself to a high degree, and think of how much water you need to drink.
Yeah.
I was talking to Carl, and he did a mission in Africa. He had 5 guys with him, and they scaled some enormous peak too. I forget how high this thing was, but each man carried 9 gallons of water in. 9 gallons. They were
Wow.
there for 3 days. They took 9 gallons of water per man for 3 days, and they were each carrying a 120 to 122 pound ruck.
Oh, wow.
And that water weight was a big piece of that. So coming out, it's not going to be as bad.
Yeah.
But think of it. They had to think ahead and say, we need 9 gallons per man. That's 72 pounds right there by itself, you know?
Yeah.
So water can be a big thing, you know?
Yeah.
It always is. Actually, it's your number one thing, because you can go without food longer. You can go without shelter. Well, depending on where you are, without shelter longer. But depending on the environment, water's first thing we ask when we show up to a place to give a class or to you know, give an evaluation on something or our own situations. The first thing we ask when we show up is, where's the water? You know, how do we get water resupply? Where is it at? What's that look like? And let's get that infrastructure done now, and then we're going to move on to other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just water; it's potable, clean water. What are you going to use? What can you drink? What can you? Yeah, there's a big difference too. That's, you know, I watching a lot of the Alone or watching the other was it Naked and Afraid and some of these other shows. You know, you see the biggest number one mistake, and I watch it. You know, as I watch it on TV and it's all been edited, as soon as I see somebody drinking from stagnant water, I'm like, they're going to be checking out here in about 24 hours, and they're out.
Yeah, you know, and too, the other side of the coin, though, is if you're let's just say you're in a normal thing. You went to a national park and you thought your woodsman skills were better than they were, and you're lost now. You're out there and you're lost. But, you know, you did a smart thing. Somebody knows where you're at. They know when you're supposed to be back. You know, eventually someone's going to come looking for you. And you have no way to purify water. Go ahead and drink that stagnant water. That's 72 hours before it's going to hit you, roughly. And by then you should be out of the woods anyway. But if you're dehydrated and dead, what good is that when they find you?
Yeah.
You know, so again, we have to, what's going to kill me first?
That's right.
What's going to kill me first?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So what's your thought on bug in versus bug out?
Oh, so I'm a big fan of the bug in. Why would I leave the shelter that I've prepared and stockpiled? And I know the terrain. It's my area of operation. I know the people. I know everything. Why would I want to grab a simple ruck and a rifle and run out the back door to go play, you know, Daniel Boone in the woods? The romance of that never lives up to the reality of it. You know, living out of a ruck is miserable. No shelter you're going to come up with in the woods is going to be the comfort of your own home. And you can't take all that stuff with you. All the preparations you've made, you're not going to take any of that with you. So you're not going to be living your best life. Now, if you live in an apartment building, you know, in New York City, in Manhattan or on Long Island or something like that, and you're like, this is just not tenable, I'm going to have to leave here, then start planning ahead. Go rent you a storage unit up in White Plains or something, you know, out of the city, out of town a little ways, and stock that. And just know that I have to make it there, and then I'll reevaluate my situation and figure out what I got to do. But I'm always for bugging in, never bugging out.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in agreement with you there. I see so many people that go, oh, got my 72-hour bag packed, and they're ready to roll out. And I'm thinking, man, what are you going to do when you get out there? Because, you know, you got to establish shelter. You got to get food. You got to get water. You've got to get, you know, you got to worry about other people. Because if you're thinking that way, there's others.
Security is always going to be an issue. And when people, and you said, like, I've got my 72-hour bag. The question I was asked is, what are you going to do on hour 73?
Right?
So my bags aren't designed for any time period. My bags are designed to support me for as long as I need them to.
Yeah.
So I don't pack a lot of food per se, but I pack ways to get food. I don't pack tons of water. I pack ways to filter and carry water, you know, and sheltered material, stuff like that. Tools more than anything. I carry a lot of tools in my kit to enable me to source and find and purify and make safe the stuff I find and source in the woods.
Yeah.
Or in the urban area, too, for that matter.
Yeah, I watched your EDC video and I was like, mercy, man, that guy's like an Ace Hardware store. It's like you just kept. It was like Get Smart, man. It was just you're pulling things out of all kinds of different places. I was like, where's he going next? You know?
Oh, it's a thing. People laugh. I mean, I carry a tourniquet on me every day. I carry a flashlight, a pistol, a knife. Those things are on my body. If I'm out of my bed and in my clothes, those things are on my body no matter what. And with me every day. And then so that's my primary. That's what's on my person. So that's considered my primary. Plus there's other stuff, lighters and fire starters and a few other things hidden around. Then I have my second tier, which will be usually a small bag, or a small pack. And then my third tier, which will be a full-on ruck with all the goodies you need in it. So it just depends on the situation.
Right, I got you. That's crazy. I was looking at your stuff and I'm thinking, man, this dude's got it down. I did like your Glock 19. You still carrying that, or that's your go-to?
Right there. Yeah, that's my go-to. I wasn't a Glock fan for the longest time. I mean, I probably didn't buy my first Glock till 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. I just never was a fan of them. I was a 1911 guy. I mean, I was diehard, good old Colt 1911, and I still love them. And but I went out and bought a Glock. I was like, all right, I get this now. It is easier to use. 1911 is an intelligent person's firearm. There's a lot of moving parts, and you got to know how to use that thing if you need to use it. And Glocks are just easier.
Yeah. The print on carrying a 1911, they're a little heavier. You're hard to hide them, conceal them. The 19 is probably the ultimate. I wasn't like you. I was carrying. I'm a SIG guy, right? And so I was doing my SIG, and then as I trained with one of the Green Berets, that his go-to was the Glock, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. And I ended up trading him a rower for a Glock 19, and then I haven't looked back, So I was like, I'll take. You can have my rower. You hook me up, And so, it's a good gun. And I when you pulled that one, I was like, all right, that's good. I like it. That's like-minded.
Yeah, I carry 19s for personal carry and 17s on the battle rig and 17 mags everywhere. I don't keep Glock 19 mags around really, so that way they can fit in either gun. I don't grab a 19, try to stuff it in a 17 one day, so I just keep 17 mags around.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So let me ask you a question. What got you into prepping?
I grew up in Florida, so hurricanes come every year, and as a kid we dealt with them, and I saw that. And, we didn't have a lot of money. There wasn't much prepping that we did as a family back then, but we never were without. We were never standing in line anywhere after a storm or nothing like that. We got through everything. But it started with that. It started I want to be ready for these storms. And then I got married and I had my first daughter, and I was like, now I really want to be ready. And so that by the time my third daughter was born in 2004, she was born on the 22nd of September, and on the 23rd, a hurricane hit Florida. And I was ready. I had a window unit AC in the master bedroom, enough. I had 3 different generators, fuel, food, everything. I actually had like 8 other people in my house to ride out the storm. And we watched movies and kind of had a party because my house had power and running water and everything else, and everybody else in our area didn't. So it started with, and too, back in the late 80s and early 90s, I was really into primitive skills, very Stone Age kind of skills. And the two sort of meshed together at some point. And then I saw the light and really kind of got serious about it. And so I've been doing it now, hardcore prepping for over 20 years, but I've been in the primitive survival skills for over 30. So
that's pretty wild, man. Yeah, that's good stuff. And it's good things to have. I mean, that's a skill set that a lot of people don't have. And it's always good to know you got range and depth, right? So if you ever do have to bug out, like you said, that's the last thing you want to do. But if you get into a scenario where you have to be on the move, having those skill sets it's just, you can't, they're irreplaceable. It could save your life,
Oh, well, it absolutely can, and the thing is though, folks, is you got to get out there and do this stuff. You can't watch YouTube videos and learn it. I mean, you can learn theory and principle, things like that, but you got to go do it, because when you're watching YouTube videos, you can't feel the heat or the cold or the wet or the frustration or the despair even at times, because it happens to everybody when they're out there in a bad time. And so you got to go out and do it. You got to live the suck to know the suck, and it really is the only way to do it. And I highly recommend people take classes. I don't care who you take them from. Find a competent instructor. This goes for firearms, survival skills, everything. Get instruction. People love to buy stuff, and especially they like to buy stuff and stuff it in a really nice looking ruck somewhere that's never seen the dirt, and think they're doing something for themselves. And you kind of are, but you're giving yourself a false sense of security. You've got all this kit, you've got all these things that can help you save your life, but if you don't know how to use them, what good are they going to do?
No, that's a good point. That's like people that just go and shoot at indoor ranges. It's like you get out in the elements. That's the first thing they teach you, man. Get out. If you're going to shoot in the rain, you train in the rain. And that's how you get out and just you adapt and learn
Yeah.
to work in different elements and go to when it's cold out, you go and shoot. When it's cold and rainy out, you go and shoot. You just
When
I
it's
try
hot
not
and
to do it
rainy
as
out,
what's
you go and
that?
shoot. When it's hot and rainy out, you go
Yeah,
shoot. When it's just hot and miserable out, you go out and shoot.
yeah.
I remember a few years ago working with a guy that he was carrying a Glock 19 and he had a red dot on it, and he was a really good shooter with it. And we were on the range and it started to rain. And he's like, "Oh, we got to stop." I'm like, "No, we don't need to stop. We need to stay here. We're going to keep doing this." And after arguing with him for a few minutes, I finally got him to commit to keeping his ass on the range. But he had never even imagined, the thought had never entered his head of what happened to his optic if he got water on it, rain. It can blow out your red dot. It looked like a big star. It's hard to exactly see that 1 MOA or 3 MOA dot, whatever your optic happens to have. And it really messes things up. But he had no frame of reference, no experiential frame of reference for that because he had never seen it before. Because like you just said, all he'd ever done is shoot at an indoor range. And things work perfect in perfect conditions. They don't always work perfect in less than perfect conditions.
Yeah, without a doubt. And and that's the other thing too. You get acclimated to doing it that way, and then when you get into a situation that your adrenaline's pumping, or you have fear involved, or whatever may be the case, a home defense act, all of that stuff goes right out the window. And that's like you said. When you talk about security and you talk about the things that you have to consider when it comes to prepping, prepping is just the basis of it, but everything you have to be able to adapt given the conditions, and that's it's pretty wild. But so let me ask you, so what made you decide you wanted to start training people?
Well, I'm not really an instructor. I'm not a good teacher in my personal opinion. I like to share information and knowledge, and I train with a lot of people. I do more of this stuff than the average person does by a long shot. And so I just want to help people get more prepared. Genuinely, that's really all it's about. I don't do it to make lots of money. I generally don't charge for a lot of the training I do. I do sometimes. It's not a revenue stream for me. But I think it's incumbent upon those of us that have skill sets like this to share them with those that know they need them, and to encourage the ones that don't know they need them to get them. So
I got you. Now, people that are interested in taking classes with you, they can do that through your website. Is that?
Well, hit me on Facebook. We're doing some work on that website right now. There's some changes coming to it. So just PM me on Facebook, Angry American, spelled the same way with the ER there.
Okay.
Send me a message. I have a class coming up in Baltimore next month. We're going to be up there doing a stop to bleed, some other stuff. So if anybody's interested, they can hit me on Facebook. Just send me a PM, say, "Hey, where you at?" And when you're training, I always post when I have classes on Facebook, as long as Facebook don't take them down, which they generally do. But we're getting ready to do a pretty big Southwest U.S. kind of swing, all the way out from Florida out through Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, back into Colorado, maybe up into Wyoming, Montana, I'm not sure yet, Oklahoma, before coming back home. So we'll be on the road a few months doing classes and taking classes too. I take a lot of training classes. So
yeah, that's awesome. Good deal. What would you recommend from your book standpoint? Now that you have books that actually a series of books that actually go into survival techniques and things of that nature. What's your latest book, and where can they find it?
Well, the latest one is a collaboration I did with Alan Kay. And if you're a fan of Alone, then you know Alan Kay is the guy that won season 1. He's like my brother, my best friend in the whole world, and who I got to call as soon as we're done with this because he texted me asking me if I'm alive. But he won season 1, and he and I did a book together called Decline and Decay: Strategies for Surviving the Coming Unpleasantness, aimed at what we were talking about earlier. This book is really geared towards what's going to happen potentially here in this country with the civil unrest, the things that we're seeing, and the stuff you need to be doing to get ready for it. Now, it doesn't tell you to go buy 10 cans of pinto beans and 5 pounds of cornmeal or nothing like that. It's kind of a 10,000 foot view. We cover this stuff in big ideas of what you need to do in each of these categories, food, water, shelter, medical security, all the other things you need to do, entertainment, bartering. This book covers everything. And so that's the latest one. And that was when he and I did it. It took us 2 years to do that book. It was a slog to get through it. But it's a great book. The reviews have been fantastic on it. People are really getting something out of it, which is what we wanted. We even say in the preface of the book, if just one person learns something and this from this book, and it makes a difference in their life, we will count the contest a success in getting this book done. It'll be worth our effort if just one person, if it makes a difference for them. And that's, so far, I'm going to say I think we've kind of hit that mark better than we hoped we would.
Yeah, right on. Where can they get that book? Is it on Amazon?
Oh, that's on Amazon. Yeah,
Nice.
You grab it on Amazon. It's going to be going up on Barnes & Noble here pretty quick, too. It's not there yet, but it will be. But it is on Amazon right now.
Okay. We'll make sure we put a link to that down in the description of this video for those that are interested. Okay. Okay. Next question here as I kind of go through it. So if there was one prepping technique or survival skill that you could train someone on, what would it be and why?
Oh, good Lord. That's a broad one. One skill to have. Well, people may think this is a little silly when I say it, but it would probably be first aid. And I don't mean a Red Cross first aid class. I'm talking the use of chest seals, tourniquets, pressure dressings, things like that. Because that's the one skill that in your lifetime you will almost certainly have a use for. There's no doubt about it. Most people do not have qualified medical training or even a basic first aid class. And you could be the person that saves somebody's life. You know, I carry a CLS bag in my truck that has a bag valve mask, so I can do respiration for somebody, CPR certified. I carry a considerable amount of medical gear in my truck, from tourniquets and pressure dressings to chest seals to darts to decompress them to splints to a full litter. I have a full collapsible litter in my truck, just depending on what I might come across. Because medical, you know, it happens every day, and it happens to somebody every day. So stay ready for that would be mine. Especially if you have a family. If you got little kids and stuff, you better get in and get you an infant CPR class, things like that. Learn those skills that will make a difference for somebody at some point.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And that is that's kind of a broad brush. I mean, there's so many different areas of, when it comes to medical that you can learn, that it's not just a matter of helping others, but it's also allows you to identify when you're into a situation like dehydration or hypothermia or whatever, things like that. So you can kind of, because you're learning how to teach or actually to treat those skills, you learn how to identify them and learn how to recognize them in yourself, right?
Exactly. Doing assessments and doing self-assessments is very, very important. People don't realize dehydration, hypothermia in the initial stages are a lot alike, in that you start losing manual dexterity, your brain gets foggy, and if you let this thing keep going, eventually you're just going to be unconscious. Both of them result in the same thing, different mechanisms entirely, but the result's the same. But if you have the skill set, you know what to look for, then you can see it happening in yourself, hopefully before it's too late. It's hard to catch it for yourself. You've got to be very in tune to yourself and everything, and also not be so arrogant as to say, that's not going to happen to me. I'm better than that. No, it happens to all of us.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. In the military, I will tell you that they actually put you into those conditions a lot of times. And of course you're around instructors or watching for it, but they want you to feel that, so that you understand and know what to look for, and so they'll actually induce those conditions. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I was doing an assessment for a loan, as a matter of fact, first thing in the morning, and they made us jump fully clothed into a lake, submerge ourselves totally, get out, build a fire, and dry our clothing. It was cool, and you didn't know this was coming, and it was humorous to the number of people that didn't have the kit on their person at the time to build a fire with. I was laughing really hard at that. You're here for a survival course, and you can't make a fire right now when they tell you to. Oh, you're not starting off so hot. But while you're trying to do all this, they're coming around and asking you what the signs of hypothermia are and asking you all. So you're already preoccupied doing one thing. You're standing there butt naked, shivering, trying to get stuff together to build a fire, and these guys are asking you, what are the symptoms and the signs and what's the treatment? How do you deal with it and the whole thing while you're doing all this? So putting yourself in realistic training scenarios like that are have a safety net is the best way to learn this stuff. Sucks bad, but it's a good way to learn it.
Yeah. And again, and people that are just going to think they're going to just bug out and go out in the wilderness and do those kind of things don't realize until you get into those conditions just exactly how critical that skill set is, right? So
it's brutal.
Yeah. So let's see. What was your favorite book to write and why?
My favorite one was the first book, Going Home. A bunch of reasons for that. First, I didn't know I was writing a book when I did it. I wrote surviving home on a survival forum that had a fiction section where a lot of people wrote stories. And I was just sitting up one night reading them, and I'm like, some of these are really good, some of them not so good. I'm like, but they're all kind of missing something for me, And I was like, what the hell am I writing? That was really how I got started. And I just started writing the story that night, posted the first little opening piece of it, and went to bed. And the next day, driving to work, pulled the BlackBerry out, tell you how long ago that was, and looked at the thread, and there was lots of comments, and people were really into it. And so I just kind of stayed with it. And that was how the book went. All these people commenting and reading, and it became a community, and there's a lot of interaction with people. And there's still people to this day that I'm very good friends with from those days that I met on that forum writing the book. And it was that interaction, that back and forth. I always knew what they were thinking was going to happen and what was coming. And it was easy for me to go, well, that's not going to happen. I got to come up with something else now and catch them out of left field. And so it was just a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. And I do miss that, but now we're in the business of making books. And so, but I'm going to try to resurrect it here soon on my own forum. I'm going to have a running story for the people there to read.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, man. Do you think you'll ever go back out and do another Alone, or what about Naked and Afraid? Any kind of thing like that?
Naked and Afraid, I would never go on, and not for the reason people think. I just happen to know for a fact through friends and industry people that entire show is scripted. Most people think it's not. It's all scripted. Not entirely, but majority of it. As for Alone, I would have early on. The season they did in Mongolia, they had contacted me and asked me if I'd go, and I was like, yeah, I'll go. Absolutely, send me. But then it didn't work out. They wanted some stuff I didn't quite feel like surrendering, so I didn't do it. That's the real dark side of that, is when you do one of those things, the restrictions, restraints, and clawbacks they put on you after the show for up to 2 years at times.
Wow. Yeah, that I got to tell you, like you said, in the conditions with the wolves, people, a lot of folks don't realize that just like lions, those wolves are, they're natural predators, and in packs, they are lethal. And so, you put yourself in that situation. I don't know, like you, I'd have a hard time giving up a weapon to be out there just kind of exposed.
I argued for firearms with them. And believe it or not, I was the first person cast for that show. But I argued the gun point with them hard. And I found out after the show, the reason that they finally came down and said no firearms was because they were afraid that we would either A, shoot ourselves, or B, shoot at them when they came to check on us.
Yeah.
And that's why they wouldn't let us have them.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if you got folks that are, you start to hallucinate from dehydration and things like that, or something.
Or drinking seawater or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love you, Brent. Love you, Brent, man. I love you, buddy.
Hey, I don't know. I may have put a few rounds down range too if they left me out overnight, 14 hours with a bunch of wolves up on the ridge.
If I had a firearm that first night, I'd have probably been calling for reloads, because them things are huge, man. They were. For me personally, when you talk about your own personal, worst thing that could happen to me, I wasn't worried about cougars. I wasn't worried about bears. I've had a lot of bear encounters in the woods, lots of them. I've been chased to my truck by them before. So I wasn't worried about those. I know how to deal with them. But then I'm like, wolves. I'm like, really? I'm like, of all the shit to show up, man, it has to be wolves. Like the second night I'm there, like, you gotta be shitting me. So, but yeah, it is what it is, and I don't regret doing it at all. I wish it went different, but it is what it is. So I can take the medicine.
It's all good. Alan, the guy that won, his sense of humor was just amazing. Like, I think that's what, he just, I don't know. I loved him all the way through. I was like, this dude is awesome. I love the fact that he is out there and just got just his, total wits about him. He's laughing at it all, just having a good time. And so that's pretty amazing. You guys are still totally in lockstep and talking all the time. That's good stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I go up and stay at his place all the time. He's got a beautiful place up in the mountains of North Georgia. And Alan's a very good person to be alone. Like, he functions well by himself. And even when we're hanging out, we're out in the woods and stuff, we can be doing things. We don't have to talk a lot. We talk when we want to, but it's not like we have to fill the silence, and he's a comfortable dude for me to be around, because I'm the same way in a lot of aspects.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So some of the questions that I had from the Patreon folks. Now I did get one more I had for you that from Millennial Mac was that she wanted to know where you got the name Angry American. How'd you come up with that?
Well, remember I said I started writing going home on a forum. That was just my username on a forum, and people come up with all kinds of stuff for usernames. And
Like
that's
monkey,
all it
yeah.
was. I just did it as a lark. But when I was going to publish this thing, um, much against my desires, I didn't want to, but people demanded I do it, so I did it. And no one knew my name, so I couldn't put my name on it because no one would ever find it. So I had to go with the pen name. And when Penguin Books came around, they were like, "Yeah, we got to talk about this pen name thing because we're not putting that on the cover of the book ever." And so we shortened it to A American for Penguin. So
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I get you. When you try to protect your name and you because you got family and things like that, and
well,
there's
I wasn't even doing that. That really wasn't even the thing at the time. Just no one knew my name. And for years, people didn't. It's out now. A lot of people know my name. And I don't care. It don't bother me any at all. There's some things I would have done different looking back if I'd have been a little smarter as far as online privacy, but not against people, against agencies.
yeah, right. Yeah,
that ship sailed too. So
yeah, for sure. There's no hiding from that anymore. I mean, even if you're
no,
off the
no, you're
grid, they're
not.
still watching you. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So, what would be a fun fact about yourself that not many people know that you normally don't mention?
Fun fact about me. I don't know. I'm not a lot of fun. No, I mean, probably, for entertainment for me, one of my favorite pastimes is fishing. All varieties. I love surf fishing in Florida, kayak fishing, boats, deep sea, ponds. I keep a Japanese fly rod, like in my camper, even. There's no reel on it. They're just old school Japanese fly rods for when I'm out. Any body of water, I'm going to stop and throw a line into it. And that's something that I seriously enjoy. I love to hunt too, but I like to fish more. That's my favorite thing.
Good deal. All right, so this is going to be from our Patreon folks that had some questions for you. One of them, they wanted to just ask you to walk people through just survival 101, the basic necessities. So if you had to just give somebody kind of here's just bare bones. If you're out and about, probably like your EDC, just your everyday
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, that's so personal dependent. Again, where are you? What is your skill set? And what are the circumstances? The whole thing. When it comes to survival, as far as basic necessities, you got to think of the basic things for life are what? They're going to be food, water, shelter, right? First three out of the gate, always they're going to be there. Fire usually comes in, but you might be in an urban environment. Fire may not be the concern. So with fire, I'll also throw in energy. So fire and energy. And then medical and security. So those are the things you need to look at holistically. Hygiene is another one. Sometimes gets tossed into medical. I like to mention it from time to time as a secondary thing because it gets forgotten a lot. All these guys with their bug out bags and all this stuff, few of them carry any sort of hygiene equipment. And staying clean is going to be a big deal. And you can't carry enough of that stuff in a ruck to make a difference. So there's other skill sets to learn to mitigate that. But you got to start checking those blocks. If you're at home, shelter is covered, right? So now we need to look at food and water. What are we storing? How much water do we have? Are we on city water? Are we on well? Things like that. Food, same thing. Storing enough food. What kinds of food are you storing? Then do you have the ways to cook that food without power? Then address your medical needs. Because some of these are going to kind of lump in later on some of these other questions. Address your medical needs and your security needs. Those are always going to be a paramount thing. I don't care if it's a disaster or civil unrest or what it is. Those things are always going to be there. And depending on the situation, some can be more important than others. If you lived in Minneapolis, last year, security was paramount. If you didn't want your house burned to the ground or your business burned to the ground, and it may not be stand and fight today. It may not, because you're going to lose everything anyway, probably, and you just might end up dead. So sometimes we might have to cut the loss and run. But always start food, water, and fire, energy, security, medical, hygiene are the things that I tell people to focus on to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Good answer, man. That's good stuff. Let's see. What do you recommend to somebody that has medical conditions or maybe some medical needs when they prepping?
Well, and it again depends on the need. Like I have two type 1 diabetic kids. So I didn't put that in my books, but that's the reality. That's the real case scenario. I have two of them that are type 1 diabetics. And so we use a lot of creative methods to increase stocks, inventories, that stuff. Um, I don't have health insurance because the Unaffordable Health Care Act has priced me out of the market. So I can't buy it and I can't get it any other way. And so I'm a cash paying customer. Insulin for one of my kids a month is $800. 800 bucks. You get 3 vials of insulin for that. Now, Trump passed a bill, the prices were lowered. Biden came into office, immediately rescinded that, and now the prices are back up. So we use Craigslist, believe it or not. We buy insulin and pump materials and stuff like that off of Craigslist. Get creative. If it's a med based thing, if it's some kind of a med that you have to have, be it say transplant or anti-rejection drugs or something in that case, try to stock up, find a good doctor that will do a 30 or a 90-day prescription for you and do some looking around. You'll be surprised if you look around and ask the things that you can find. Because most people aren't looking for them. So get creative with that, and try to plan ahead. Like for my diabetic kids, we store a lot of insulin, needles and all that sort of stuff. But the worst case scenario is I have read and studied the diabetic diet. I know what there used to be one, excuse me, back before insulin was really a thing. It was a near starvation level diet, but it would keep diabetics alive. So that's my worst case fallback, because past that, we know what the results are going to be, and we're not going to fool ourselves. So I'm doing everything I can on that end. So I would recommend a lot of reading, folks. Start studying up and sourcing the materials. Start getting what you can and put it away.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Save a pill here and there if you have to, right? If it's
exactly. Yep. Whatever. Everyone counts,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, without a doubt. So the other thing a lot of the followers are asking are, what would you recommend for generators? Now, I'm one that to me, I know you mentioned being down in Florida in a hurricane situation. Civil unrest with generators is a little different than a natural disaster, although they could change. But I tend to look at them like bug zappers. People can hear generators running for miles, and if you're the only house on the street with lights on, you're going to draw a lot of attention to yourself. So that said, though, what do you think? What's your thoughts on it? Good, bad? What do you recommend for a generator?
I highly recommend having one, because while we sometimes get too focused on the absolute worst case scenarios of civil unrest and zombies in the streets and all this stuff, and you're going to have more need for a generator prior to that day than you ever will for that day. So I recommend having them. I have 3 or 4. I like Generacs personally. I'm a big fan of the multi-fuels that'll burn propane or gasoline. Gives you options. That's the only reason. Just gives you options. But what folks need to remember on generators is these little 5 kW generators like Home Depot and Lowe's sell, the little skid mounted ones that have a little Briggs motor on them, full start motor, whatnot. Those things are not designed for continuous use. So let's just say this hurricane that's moving through Florida today. I'm not home for it, thank God, but it's moving through. You pull that thing out because the power is out. Let's just say the power is out for 2 weeks. You will destroy that generator if you try to run it 24/7 for 2 weeks. It'll be dead when you're done, finished. So what I tell people is to look for a better quality generator. It's one of the reasons I like the Generacs. And get one with a spin-off oil filter that's designed to have the oil changed frequently during the operation. So the last hurricane we had 2 years ago in Florida, my power was out for a week. I ran my generator for a week, but I changed the oil in it every 16 hours. So the second time I would refuel it every day, I would throw the chain on the lift and eye, pick it up with my tractor, change the oil, spin a new filter on, refill it, set it back down, fresh fuel, fire it up, right back to business. But that was a $4,000 generator too. So costs a little more money, but that's a generator I know I'll have forever. Just by doing a little maintenance and taking care of it, and have that stuff on hand. I've got boxes, stacks of oil filters for it, and gallons of oil in my shop, just to keep my stuff running.
Yeah. Now, what all did you power with that? So I think a lot of people think, oh man, I get a generator, I can run all my stuff in my house, and you usually get just a couple items, right? A refrigerator or something like that.
Well, you'd be surprised. A 5 kW generator, most American homes, it will run everything in the house with the exception of the hot water heater and the central air. So microwave, no problem. Fridges and freezers and lights and TVs and all that stuff. I used 5 kW generators forever until I bought the 10 kW I have now. My 10 kW generator runs my entire home, central air, hot water, everything. The downside of that is it burns 37 gallons of gas a day if I run it 24 hours a day. So I have 300-gallon tanks at my house. So I'm like, all right, I can get 10-ish days out of this thing with my on-hand fuel supplies from one tank. So you got to weigh that out. Gas is expensive, getting gas. And it's always the first thing to disappear, too. Someone thinks a storm's coming or something like that's happening, the gas stations dry up. If people have real estate, you live in the country, you got an acre or a couple acres or something like that, I recommend contracting with a local fuel company, getting storage tanks put at your place, and having fuel delivered to your home to maintain that. Because my company brings me gasoline, generators, cars, my wife's cars, kids, and diesel for my trucks. So I don't go to the gas station much. We just fill up right there at the house. They come every Friday, top the tanks off, and just send me a bill.
Nice. Yeah, that's you probably have some pretty big storage tanks if you're doing that, because you think about it, most of the ones you think about the lawnmower gas tanks, right? A little 5 gallons, but if you just said 37 gallons a day, you'd be going back and forth to the gas station, multiple trips every day.
Yeah, I mean it's got I think it's got a 12-gallon tank on it. So 5-gallon gas cans. That's three of those each time I got to fill this thing up. I'm doing it twice a day.
Yeah,
or sometimes a third time of the day, depending on load shedding and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a lot of fuel, and you got to weigh it. Do I want to spend this kind of money? In current market price, do I want to spend $210 a day to keep the lights on?
Yeah.
But I do live in Florida, and I'm not so worried about the lights as I am that air conditioning. That one's important to me. So
yeah, I'm telling you that, and mosquitoes. That's a whole other dynamic right there. I grew up in Florida too, and so it's crazy. The mosquitoes down there will carry small babies away. They are insane, big, and in abundance. So, yeah. Now we were looking at some of the generators here in Texas when all of this went down. My wife was like, "Oh, we've got to get a generator." And so we're looking at these ones that they run off natural gas. They go on the side of your house, and they'll run your full house as well. But those things are $20,000, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So it's crazy.
That's a lot of money. See, I don't have the standby generator and all that. And part of it, and the biggest reason for me is I look at the investment in that generator and I'm like, and if something happens, I can't throw that in my truck and take it with me.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I don't have a standby generator, is that I can't throw it in my truck and take it. I just can't see myself spending that kind of cash on something that I know for a fact I would have to abandon.
Yeah, 100%. If you bug out, that thing is whoever's coming in to take your stuff is going to have a nice generator. So. What are your thoughts on water purification methods and storage?
It depending on, I guess we're probably talking at home, I would assume, because we're talking storage. So my personal go-to favorite thing for water storage are 15-gallon food grade drums. They've got a big D handle on top of them. You can pick them up and move them. One guy can pick that up and tote it. You can pick up 2 of them and move them. You're not going to carry them into the block or nothing. You can move them. And it gives you something easy to stack, durable. They're also dark blue, so light's not going to be an issue. You're not going to be growing stuff in there. And you can take those barrels from any water source, that be it your well water or your municipal water, fill them up. You don't have to add nothing to them. Spin the tops on them and store them in the garage or out in the shed or wherever it's going to be. And they're going to be fine. That's clean water. It was clean when it went in. It's still going to be clean when it's in there. You don't need to do anything to store it. As far as now, if you have questionable water sources, then yeah, we got to get into the stuff. But, as far as a home filter, I'm a fan of the big Berkey water filters. They are hands down one of the best filters on the market, and just easy to use. 2-stage, you pour the water at the top, gravity filters out the bottom, no moving parts. Great. They're a little bulky, take up space, but you can literally pour ditch water into these things and drink what comes out of it. They're extremely good. Berkey's the one filter that I trust, where I won't even take a secondary treatment method and use as well. I trust that water when it comes out, because I have drank thousands upon thousands of gallons of Berkey water, and I'm still here. So never been sick from it.
Yeah. What do you think about Lifestraw? You ever use those out in the field or anything?
They have a place. I use the Sawyer Mini in my small personal survival kits because my personal survival kit's a little bit bigger footprint than what most people consider a pocket tin. But I've tried pocket tins and I understand the futility of those. So I made a real survival kit. And I put a mini or a Sawyer Mini in there. The biggest downside of those is number one, you have to get on your hands and knees and put your face in the water source. Not necessarily a bad thing, but you're not looking around. Your security just went to shit. Your situational awareness no longer exists. Your face is in the water. And where do predators in the wild? Where do predators exist? At the watering hole. So, not my preferred method. The other thing is there's no way to carry water there. You can't pre-filter water that you can then take and use on the move because you've got to stick this thing in the water source to filter water. So while I'll use it as a tertiary, a third level of filtration for myself, it's never my primary. I like a Sawyer or like a Katadyn pump or Sweetwater, something I can pump, or even one of the, like Platypus has a great little gravity filter system with a big bag. You fill up the one bag and it just gravity fills into the other, filters into the other. I like those two. Sawyer Minis, not the Lifestraw, but the Sawyer Minis are great. If you have a hydration bladder, you can cut the tube and stick that filter in line, and then you can put dirty water in your Camelback or whatever because you're going to be drinking through a filter anyway. So, and then there's some maintenance issues with those. You know, if it's not something you use a lot, but you use it a little bit, I mean, it's in your ruck and you didn't clean it out properly, you'll probably just be making yourself sick next time you go to use it. There'll be growing things in there.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellent point. So let's see here. We're looking good on there. About 3 minutes left here. What steps would you recommend people take that are just getting started with prepping?
Well, get that book, Decline and Decay. Honestly, that's a great way to start. But evaluate your lifestyle first. Are you living in a place conducive to long-term survival? You know, again, back to that whole example of Manhattan. If that's where you live, you know, your first step in survival should be calling a realtor. Find a new place to live. Not always convenient, not always easy. I get that. But evaluate your life first and then start checking those boxes. What are the things that are going to kill you or your family members first? You know, if you've got a new infant, your survival storage plan is going to be entirely different than mine. I don't have an infant. I'm not worried about that sort of thing. But if you've got one, you're going to be thinking that way. So what's going to kill me first? And two, remember, when you're planning beginning this journey for survival sustainability, we're always talking about the end of the world, You always hear, when the crap hits the fan or whatever it is. But you're far more likely to suffer the end of your world than you are the end of the world. That's an almost guarantee to happen to somebody at some point. So figure out the things that you can't live without. You know, if money is the issue, then start getting your money in order. I told a lady that one time to ask me the same question, and she was not happy with the answer because I asked her, I said, what would happen if you lost your job next week? I said, what kind of position would you be in? She's like, I'd be homeless by the end of the month. And I was like, well, then you need to start there. That's where you need to start, is on that, and start working away. So if our finances are in order, everything's cool. All right, now let's start looking at our food and our water and our energy security and our medical equipment and preparedness and skills and stuff like that. But think small. You know, your family. What are the things that are going to affect them? Is it a job loss? Is it your death? If you don't have life insurance and you got a wife and kids or a husband and kids, and you're the breadwinner and you're not preparing for the future where you may not exist on their behalf, start there. I mean, it's let's get our priorities in order, you know?
No, good stuff. Bartering, you mentioned that in your book. That is, I think, a life skill that a lot of people don't realize comes into play because money becomes almost obsolete in certain scenarios. So what are your thoughts on that during survival?
Absolutely. It's a key thing. It's also a skill, you know, still in some of the Arab countries and places like that, to not bicker over a deal is considered an insult to a trader or a merchant or somebody you're wanting to swap something with. You're supposed to argue. Other people, that's hugely offensive. So you got to know your audience, understand the value of what you have, the value of what you need. Never trade from a point of desperation, ever. But as soon as they realize you're desperate, you're over the barrel and they've got you. Security is also a big thing when it comes to bartering, especially if we're in a world without rule of law or grid down, that kind of thing. Security is paramount. And we go into it in Decline and Decay. We discuss, use one route to get there, another route to come home. Don't use the same route twice. That's how you get killed. Take security overwatch. Send somebody in early that doesn't look like they're with you to be in the area to kind of get a feel for things before you come to do your trading. There's a lot of stuff to consider. And then two, what are you going to trade? What you need versus what you have. And some people recommend storing stuff up just for bartering. Things like Bic lighters. I don't go with tobacco. Alcohol is always good because tobacco can, if it's not stored right, be worthless. But even salt, salt used to be a currency, hundreds of years ago. Still is today. We take it for granted because you go to the grocery store, you buy that 1 pound thing for 50 cents or whatever the hell it is, and we take it for granted. But go out in the wild and try to find you some salt and tell me what you think that can's worth then. But yeah, use your head. Security is paramount in bartering for certain. For certain.
All right, good deal. All right, brother. Well, listen, man, we're up at the top of the hour here, and I just want to thank you. I'd love to have you come back and just go
anytime.
Yeah,
anytime.
We'll definitely do that. Thank you for your time, and we'll have all the information, folks that are interested in looking up Chris's stuff. Not only in the ticker here, but down in the description. If you want Chris's new book, it's all going to be available out there in the description. And so, again, thank you for your time, brother. And we'll see you on the flip side. So,
you got it, man. You keep up the good work too, because what you're doing for folks
thanks.
is awesome. Next time we can get on, we'll talk about some current events and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I track all that every day too, all day long.
Nice. All right. Well, let's do it. I'll have Matt get in touch with you and we'll get it set up, man.
Awesome, brother. Sounds good. All right.
Good deal, guys. Hey, thanks everybody. God bless. Monkey out.